Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DeFurio with Keys to the Shop, and welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco, and La Marzocco has been making espresso machines by hand in Florence, Italy since 1927. So ever since then, almost 100 years ago, they have established themselves for dependability, beauty, innovation, and over the years, as the company has evolved, as coffee has evolved, they've evolved right along with it. But those three things have always been the cornerstone of their business. It's evident, it's self-evident when you use a La Marzocco espresso machine. If you're using the KB90, for example, the ergonomics for the straight in-locking portafilter, the scales in the drip tray for accuracy of extraction, auto flush for cleanliness. This is an innovation feature that La Marzocco has taken on to honor that reputation. Ease of use, dependability in the machining, and the functionality of the equipment is unrivaled. That's why I always recommend people a La Marzocco when they're looking for an espresso machine that they can count on. And I think you're going to be in great hands with them. So go to lamarzocousa.com and check it out for yourself. And better yet, talk to one of their salespeople over at info@lamarzocousa.com, and they'll help you get the machine of your dreams. So again, lamarzocousa.com. Now, also, we are supported today by our friends at Rattleware. Rattleware.com has all the smallwares you need. They love outfitting you with the kind of equipment that will help you get just peace of mind, knowing the small things are taken care of. Knock boxes, pitchers, whisks, and that kind of stuff. This is the minutia, the little stuff that makes a big difference in the cafe. Rattleware.com. That's where you should go. They love to be able to support you so that you can just count on this functional small wares. It's really a great company. So go check them out again at rattleware.com. Now, today we are going to be talking about the issue of new things. And I definitely get the irony in some ways because we have sponsors on the show. And in no way do I think that it is a conflict in some sense, because I wouldn't want you to buy something from anybody if it was what we're going to discuss today, which is simply a response to an unsettled feeling in your soul about what you're doing and the value of what you're doing. We love to do retail therapy instead of relational therapy, instead of operational therapy or quality and that kind of thing. We always imagine that new is always better. We do this with equipment, and we do it with coffee offerings and menu items, and we always talk about new things constantly. I need new flavors. I need new signature drinks. I need six specials every month just to keep the people interested, because they're going to get bored. And if they get bored of the drinks, they're going to go to somewhere else that has an interesting drink. But guess what? There are only so many types of equipment that you can buy. There's only so many types of drinks you can make. Everybody at a certain point reaches a level of this homogenous expression with different cute names that you give things like menu items, or an arrangement of grinders and espresso machines that it's kind of like we're trying to unlock some mysterious code. Like the cafe is a puzzle box. And inside the puzzle box, if you've ever done one of these, there's an elaborate system of little drawers that are interlocked, and they have to be opened in just the right way in order to get to the prize or the hidden thing on the inside. And for us, that seems like, oh, that's success, or that's customer loyalty. And in this analogy, the different drawers and the things that we want to get through are, okay, I need the right grinders, I need the right espresso machine, I need the right menu, and I need to keep on, just sort of like arranging these things and trying different combinations to unlock something. And honestly, it's mostly how you go about using the things that you currently have, rather than getting new things to make you better, because a poor craftsman blames his tools. That's just a very common little proverb, and I totally believe it, because people, again, were making espresso and making coffee drinks that were actually pretty great years passed before you opened your coffee shop, even. And people were just happy as a clam to go there and buy coffee and have a good time and enjoy the coffee shop. So we like to imagine that we have to always have new things, or we need to constantly be fresh and innovative. Innovation is a response to the best innovation is a response to a need that reveals itself in the doing. So if you need to innovate something on your menu, you need to prove that there is a need based on the behavior of your clients, based on your customers, or based on your baristas. Innovation for your coffee bar is by the way, it's not going to end up being something very elaborate. Usually it's very simple. So innovation for a lot of coffee bars just looks like refinement of the workflow, or maybe you need, instead of opening a second store, maybe you're leaving a lot of money on the table in your current store by dint of waste or labor or inefficiency on the bar, and the bar needs to be potentially recalibrated, or not recalibrated, but uh, rebuilt in some ways, arranged. And it would be far cheaper to do that and gain profitability than it would be to open an entirely new coffee shop without examining the gains that you could be missing out on in your current location. And there's also something to say about the waste, inefficiencies, and the value and gains to be had in the culture of the coffee shop that we're leaving on the table as well, where we could be seeing better relationships with our customers and with our staff if we were a little bit more confident in consistent in our communication, celebration of them and the things that we know they love. And that relationship would be a very deep trust-based relationship if we did those things. But what we have our heads filled with are these ideas that we've constantly, everybody wants to leave our coffee shop all the time, and we constantly feel like it's like this insecure feeling of just like, my baristas are always wanting to leave my shop, my customers are always wanting to leave my shop. And we start with this assumption that disaster is just around the corner, and we're so hyper vigilant about it that nothing feels settled in the cafe, which ironically actually is a self-fulfilling prophecy. You actually create anxiety in your cultures, you create an unsettled feeling, and you actually build and market yourself as the place that actually doesn't have much of an identity outside of really, really trying, and maybe trying too hard to do too much for a problem that you imagined is a problem. Because a lot of our issues come from reading stories about other people's businesses, but not necessarily examining our own business well enough to determine whether that story is a helpful illustration for our situation, or whether or not it's just something that is interesting but doesn't apply to me. We've got to be the experts in what we do. We have to have operational or organizational self-knowledge. And when it comes to new stuff, you get in this cycle of constantly making decisions based on reinvention. And just think about it this way, okay? And this is my last analogy for this episode of Shift Break. But if you've got a friend and that friend has a style of dress, and that person always wears a particular kind of like jacket or jeans and that kind of thing, at a certain point, do you ever say about that friend, I think it's time I find new friends because I'm tired of what they're wearing? Or they kind of tell the same jokes, and you're like, well, they always tell the same jokes, and I need some new jokes, and therefore I need a new friend. Now, I know it's not a one for one comparison, but what if you would never do that? Because it's the personality of that person that by and large is the value of that person. Like they are consistently themselves, and they like me and I like them. They're my friend. And sometimes they annoy me, sometimes I annoy them. But we know that we're working for each other's benefit, and we're also, we love each other, right? So in this analogy, you and your customers, you and your staff, yes, there's going to be times where everyone annoys everyone, but it doesn't mean that you need to have this personality reinvention per se, Maybe there's some behaviors that are unhelpful in relationships that need to change, but that's not, hey, can you be a different person? That's maybe being a better version of yourself. But I think what we're doing is we're actually reinventing ourselves to the degree that it's just way too far. We're going too far with this, and we're very much kind of promoting the insecurity that makes people feel insecure in coming to our cafe. And it really is getting a little bit old to see this in coffee shops where people refuse to settle in on who they are, and they're constantly sort of like nervous and anxious about staying in a lane because they think they need to constantly be bringing new things in to attract customers. But the customers you currently have love what you currently do. What you run the risk of, and honestly, this is the big conversation with Gen Z versus Boomers versus Gen X, and who do we cater to in our menu and the way we look. Well, if you create these monoliths of people and these generational, broad brushes of people, you're already setting yourself up for failure to actually perform hospitality as we like to think it is, which is serve the people in front of you, get to know them, and bring them in for this experience that's not just based on, if I find out that a friend of mine is from the Midwest and I say, well, Midwestern people love casseroles and whatever. So I'm just gonna, whenever I have them over to my house, I'm like, I read a book on you guys, and I know you like casseroles, so I'm gonna make casserole. Everything. One day they might go like, "Why are you always offering me casseroles?" And I'm like, "Well, the sociologists and anthropologists, they tracked the migration of your people to the Dust Bowl, and somehow the evolution of your cuisine, and I learned all these things about your demographic, and meanwhile my friends looking at me like, but I don't like casserole. What do you mean? This book says that you do. What do you mean? This I read a paper on this, and there was an article on Perfect Daily Grind, or on a larger publication out there that talks about, what should we do to attract this whole millions of people that are categorized as Gen Z, and these data trends and that kind of stuff. Well, you're missing the point. The point is, who comes to your coffee shop, and don't sell them short or sell yourself short by falling into that trap, by broad brushing people based on their demographic and the prep sheet that you read about them. It's not really them that you read about. It's some rendered version of them. It's essentially like a strange uncanny valley AI version of that generation. So, okay, let's bring it back. The whole point here is we don't have to constantly keep reinventing ourselves for relevancy. People actually want consistency. And if you already have success attracting people with what you currently have, deepen your appreciation of people appreciating it. Celebrate them and keep doubling down on the things that actually work. If you want to add to it, go ahead. Don't make decisions out of insecurity because you think you constantly need to have new things, because that is a never ending cycle. And essentially, you just lose your identity and everybody starts looking exactly the same. And I think I can point to many examples of where this has happened in coffee. So before this gets to be an episode that's too long, which it already is, I think, for a shift break, I'm just going to say, well, stop there. I'd love to know your thoughts on it. Of course, you can comment in the YouTube video, or you can comment on Instagram on the reel. So I'd encourage you to do that. And let me know what you think. So thanks, everybody. And I will see you here next week for another edition of Shift Break, from keys to the shop.